outlaw bookseller Stephen E. Andrews with another video in the series Reading List Rock, but it's also a video in the series that I'm doing about Capri, the Amalfi Coast and literature. So it ties two of my loves together, both literature and rock music, and also travel, of course. So today I wanted to talk about a song which is really famous, was a massive hit in 1981, got to #2 in the British charts, has sold many copies around the world, is familiar to pretty much anybody who ever listens to the radio, and it was the biggest success for my favourite rock and roll band, the Stranglers, and that song is called Golden Brown. And I want to talk about Golden Brown in the context of literature and its connection particularly to the Amalfi Coast, which comes across in one particular lyric. So to begin, I want to ask you a question. Can you remember when you were at your happiest? It's a profound question because perhaps all happiness is relief. So that's some footage of the ferry journey to Capri, and the sirens, Sorrento, the word is derived from the word siren, and the sirens are often misidentified as mermaids, undersea hybrids of woman and fish, but they're actually, in Homer's Odyssey, they are described as like birds with women's heads. And it's funny, one place in rock music where they're misidentified as being like a mermaid is on the cover of Siren by Roxy Music, one of my favourite bands, a great cover with Jerry Hall, filmed off the coast of Wales, ironically. And if you've ever heard One in a Million, it's so beautiful and uplifting. And if you haven't, try and look it up, try and get a copy. It's only ever been released on vinyl on 7 and 12 inch. So I did think of Siren Song, the instrumental B-side, which was in a short film, I believe. So looking at Homer, I was on the ferry on the way to the Siren Island, thinking about Homer, looking ahead, and it was very beautiful in the distance. And of course, Homer was a poet. Nobody really knows who he was. There may have been several Homers. It was oral tradition. It wasn't written down till a long time after the poem emerged. And it's a quasi-mythological, partly historical account of the invasion of Troy to recover Helen of Troy, the face who launched 1,000 ships, the most beautiful woman in the world. And she obviously plays a pivotal role in sparking the Trojan War, when she is borne off to Asia Minor from Greece. And Helen of Troy was said to have taken a compound to relieve all stress, all pain, to bring pleasure. And is pleasure, as I asked earlier, merely relief from pain? Is pleasure merely relief? And that compound was called Nepenthe. Now, Nepenthe is translated literally as relief from all pain. Now, in Norman Douglas's novel, South Wind, which is regarded as the definitive Capri novel from the early part of this century, he describes characters unleashing their souls and leaving their inhibitions behind them on Capri, but he calls Capri Nepenthe to protect characters based on real people. discovered was that Capri was my Nepenthe. Not just my island of pleasure, but a place where I came alive like no other place, with this mixture of culture, glamour, history, beautiful weather, just an amazing place. And the more you go and the more you read about it and the more time you spend there, the more you discover that it is not just a tourist spot for the idle rich, that it really has some special spirit, and that's what's drawn artists there for hundreds of years. And classical scholars have found that Helen of Troy's Nepenthe was a substance, a compound, derived from opium poppies. So it was like morphine, like heroin. Like the heroin alluded to famously in the lyrics of Golden Brown by the Stranglers, that great hit single. And this was no surprise to me, because of course with the Stranglers you're dealing with a very well-read band who understand the importance of all other forms of art in helping to create great music. And Hugh Cornwell, of course, was famously arrested in 1979 on the very evening the first time I saw the band live, for possession of heroin, and he subsequently spent some time in Pentonville prison, and it was with a core celebrity in the world of rock and roll.
Every time, just like the last, on the ship, tied to the mast, two distant hands, takes both my hands, never a frown, with golden brown.
And of course, in Homer's Odyssey, which is the sequel to the Iliad, we see Odysseus, or in the Roman version, Ulysses, coming home on his ship with his crew from Asia Minor to Greece, and they're blown off course, and they go on this lengthy odyssey, this hegira, this journey that takes them to all sorts of strange places and strange islands. And the Amalfi Coast, there are numerous places across the Amalfi Coast which are associated with the sirens. Capri has a claim to be one of them. You can talk to almost anybody to the Amalfi Coast and they'll point to certain rocks and say that's where the sirens dwelt, and that's where the ship went past. And of course the sirens had a song which was so bewitching that it lured sailors to their death. And of course, Odysseus' fellow seafarers on board their ship stuffed their ears with wax so they would not hear the siren's song that would lead them to death on the rocks of Capri or wherever the sirens actually were. And of course, these are mythological creatures, but there's usually some truth in myths, even if it's metaphoric. So while the men stuffed their ears with wax, like the ears on the rear cover of oral sculpture by the Stranglers, Hugh's use of a classical reading in the lyrics refers not only to his own use of heroin, of a woman, maybe a woman like Helen of Troy, who was beautiful, who could have launched 1,000 ships, the escapism of both, the question of whether all pleasure is merely relief, but also to the siren song of the Amalfi Coast and Homer. So whenever I hear Golden Brown, I'm transported to the astonishing Isle of Capri, and I need no other Nepenthe. So if you ever go there, think of Golden Brown, listen to it on your iPod, whatever sort of play you've got, and reflect on how the Stranglers interact with classical literature. And of course they recorded an album in Italy, in Perugia, called Feline, and there's a track on there called All Roads Lead to Rome. But for me, all roads lead to the Amalfi Coast. So Golden Brown with its texture like sun, Nepenthe, the novel by Norman Douglas, Homer, the Stranglers, it's all part of the same thing. It's all part of that question. Is all pleasure merely relief? I leave you with that. This is Outlaw Bookseller. There'll be more videos coming on the Stranglers. There'll be a lot more about Capri and the Amalfi Coast. I hope this has made you think a minute about just a couple of lines from a classic song. And thanks for all your views. Do subscribe, and I'm going to sign out for now. Thank you.